It's time for 41 is the Mic, a weekly Chiefs podcast with Nick Jacobs of KSHB 41 and Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest. 41 is the Mic starts now.
Welcome, everyone, to the first round edition of 41 is the Mic. Round one is in the books. I am Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest, along with first round mock draft champion enthusiast, Nick Jacobs.
Matt, we got to hold on. Scores are not official yet. There's no victory lap on that bus tour. We're gonna wait it out till it's official, like a referee's whistle.
It is unofficial, but I do have to brag on my partner from KSHB 41, Nick, in the Huddle Report contest, which has people from all around the country in NFL media making their first round predictions and awarding points based on who got players in the correct spots and how many players you got correct in the first round. Right now, the unofficial champion and leader is our very own Nostra Jacobs.
Thank you for the kind words. And look, I'm not going to pretend it hadn't been a goal of mine. That's why I wanted to do that someday. I'm not going to pretend that wasn't a goal of mine. So I've been doing mock drafts since 1985 as a little kid. So like, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't pumped like the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl. But you know, we'll see how it goes. But Matt, you already know what I would really love to be correct about more than that.
I know what you'd love to be correct about.
It's some lottery tickets.
Yeah. You'd like to have six numbers right. Yeah.
I think that's how many are in the ones that I pick. If not, I may have been doing this wrong the entire time.
You'd trade having you'd trade nailing 12 first round picks for six numbers.
Honestly, I don't know if I would. Maybe.
I mean, I want
both, Matt. I want both. I got the Emmys that were a career goal of mine. Lets me know it was worth it. We can add this to the list of LinkedIn skills. And yeah, but dude, winning the lottery, that's on the list, man. It's on the list.
I mean, I'm not going to build you up by tearing other people down. I'm not that person. But I'm saying if you want to go to thehuddlereport.com and check it out, you'll see the people that Nick beat, because there's names that you're familiar with, and Nick beat them all. There's some household names in there, so that's what I'm saying.
Let's just call it luck, and let's hope that this hot streak continues with some lottery tickets.
Definitely not luck. But, we say luck, and I'm going to tell you right now, I mean, the Chiefs had some luck in the draft tonight, and the luck began when someone had some unfortunate luck, because, I mean, we were asked the other night, Nick, on the Chiefs Digest live Q&A, how many questions were we going to field about Josh Simmons?
A couple.
And it's all worth it now, Nick, because Josh Simmons is a Chief.
No.
He would not be a Chief had it not been for the injury that he suffered for Iowa State against Oregon and lost to Oregon. And and that's what made him available at 31. Let's be real. This kid would not be at 31 if not for the injury. He's probably going top 10, might be going top 5, because he was the best tackle on film in this draft.
Yeah, he was easily one of the top 2. Because I mean, the other guy that I'm obviously I liked Will Campbell, and I still do, but over time, like just watching Mimbu's quick feet, who got taken by the Jets and is previously at Lee Summit North High School here in Kansas City. Technically out of Lee Summit, Missouri, but in the Kansas City area. And Mimbu's just got I love offensive linemen that have quick feet, and Mimbu's got it. Josh Simmons before the injury definitely had it. And I mean, yeah, I have no doubt Simmons healthy would have been a top 15 pick. And where you want to place him, that, it just depends. But I mean, obviously with the way the draft ended up, it may have been to the Patriots at 4. It may have been to the Saints, at 9. It might have been the Chicago Bears if Simmons was there. And, Ryan Poles may have wanted him. But yeah, no, I mean, hey, the Chiefs, and it might have been the Dolphins if it was all available. But he athletically fits so many different offensive schemes when healthy. Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say bluntly, like if he can get back to 100% or near 100%, he's going to be one of the better left tackles that the Chiefs have had under the Andy Reid era if all the stars align, everything falls together, like my lottery tickets do.
Oh, and talking about the injury, there was a report over the weekend from Albert Breer that said that at the combine, Josh Simmons' medicals he described them as a little sketchy. And notable tonight that Andy Reid mentioned that the NFL did a recheck on that, and that's somewhat noticeable because that's when the NFL does injury rechecks. I mean, it's often when the players have been injured and had an injury at the combine, but it's also when there's concerns about an injury that the NFL does their own rechecks. And that was positive. That was good that Andy Reid noted. It said that hey, the recheck went well. Chiefs then had a top 30 visit where they had Josh Simmons come in. Not only Rick Burkholder, he was the vice president of sports medicine and performance for the team, but their orthopedist through KU Med Center, they looked at Josh Simmons. Everybody that pretty much has any medical authority with the Chiefs either looked at Josh Simmons' knee in person. They did obviously more tests when he was in Kansas City for that top 30 visit. They examined that knee at Kingdom Come. I mean, and as both Andy Reid and Brett Veach said tonight, the reports were all positive, that it looked like that the surgery was done very well, that it was healing well. And they're optimistic that he can be the player that he was before.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, you take the player, right?
Yeah. If your medical staff, who you trust with every single player in that building, if they sign off on it and they're good on it, then you've got to trust that. That's part of what you pay them for. So Rick Burkholder and them, like you and I talked about for weeks in advance, like if they were good with it, then that's all you should need as an organization to feel comfortable, to be comfortable with that. So yeah, like you said, because obviously as you and I both listened to Aaron Borgman and Evan Kress podcast that they do, and I'll go find the name here in a minute when I'm not saying words that form sentences. Like they talked about how important the surgery part of it is, and if you get that part of it right, then you should be able to get most of that power back or most of that torque back. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, obviously you and I had the concerns because we're not a part of the medical part. But the Chiefs, if they were going to take him, that was going to answer a lot for you and I about where they felt he was at from what they've done research-wise.
Yeah, and, hey, I readily admit it. I mean, this was the player that, honestly, I was concerned the most about for the Chiefs in this draft. And I've got a personal connection because I've had 2 patella tendon ruptures that have been repaired. I'm not a professional football player, but what it did to me is that it made me a student of the injury and the procedure. So I've studied it a lot, and I know that the numbers are honestly pretty bleak when it comes to patella tendons. It's not that, you can't recover. And, I was made aware that even though it wasn't necessarily publicized at the time. And remember, with Josh Simmons, we didn't even know, the public didn't know that he had a patella tendon rupture until the combine when he told us, when he told people that and said it at his press availability at the combine. Before that, it was just thought to be a significant knee injury. But I learned that even though was widely reported that in 2010, Brandon Graham had an ACL injury, he also had a patella tendon repair in that surgery. I mean, he came back and played 14 more years. Now, I mean, I would maybe make the argument, and the concern would be like, okay, well, Brandon Graham was really good, so that's nice. Maybe Brandon Graham might have been a Hall of Famer without the patella tendon surgery. I mean, maybe it did hold him back. Other players, you look at them, Jimmy Graham, I know he had a patella tendon the same year that Victor Cruz had one, and Victor Cruz came back, played 1 year, and he was done. I mean, that happens. The Chiefs have had offensive linemen with this injury, Lucas Niang, Kelechi Osemele. Neither one of them had. I don't think KO played again after his injury.
No, he tried to come back, but he didn't.
Niang wasn't the same after his. So it's not a slam dunk. I mean, there's a concern. I mean, I don't think you can absolutely believe 100% that this is going to work out, but you do. I do understand why the Chiefs made the risk.
Sure. Yeah. No, they took the swing. So like you can't you can't knock them for not trying. Do I think he's got the right person developing him? We'll find out. They can prove me wrong, and I hope that they do, because then that means Patrick Mahomes is a franchise left tackle that is protecting his blind side, and it's one thing the Chiefs get to have for cheap, contract wise, that isn't paying $20 million per year like they would have been paying Ronnie Stanley right now if he was here. And two, it gives them a guy who you hope is ascending as a football player over 5 years versus, getting a guy who's got an injury history in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, look, I'm not like you and I talked about. Look, one, he's on my board. Did I have him as a second round grade? Yes, but I also have noted INJ next to it for injury. And for people that don't know my board, if they're in bold and italics, I just loved watching their tape, and they're a favorite of mine. But there are people that, I don't have that for, but they're still on the board and they're still good football players. So, I mean, I'm not going to pretend that if Josh Simmons didn't have the injury, he probably would have been bold and italics. But that just made me antsy and nervous. So, like you and I have said, I don't have the medicals. I'm not a part of that community. The most I have a medical background is watching Scrubs, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and occasionally ER, and then I'm gonna watch the Pit at some point on HBO Max, and that'll be the extent of my medical career. Is watching some TV shows that may or may not be accurate.
Well, the Chiefs did not make this selection without doing their due diligence, because
all that matters.
Not only did they meet with Josh Simmons, formally at the Combine for one of their official meetings, they had him on that visit to Kansas City, one of the top 30 visits, as they call them. They then did multiple virtual meetings with him, including one Wednesday. I mean, yesterday, Nick, they were still meeting with him, and did a couple of those this week. And Brett Veach told the interesting story about how that they wanted to kind of test him out and experiment with him a little bit, because when they had him in for his 30 visit, they went over like an install. They went over the offense and asked him some questions and wanted to see, if he could learn and pick up what they do offensively and blocking schemes. And so that 30 visit was a couple of weeks ago. He then had a bunch more meetings, a bunch more Zooms. He had some more other 30 visits that he did. And so then yesterday, they went through again with him what they taught him in that 30 visit and wanted to see what he retained. And they said he did a really good job with it, that he retained a lot and showed that he could learn and pick things up. And he was obviously, I thought he was impressive in the press conference that we did with him, via Zoom tonight after the first round. I thought he was impressive. He certainly, I mean, I thought he won me over, and that's as far as it's like, hey, this is a guy I want to meet and talk more about and learn more about and learn and talk football with and get more out of him. So
right.
I think he did his job there. And he did tell an interesting story about talking with Andy Heck, and that standing out to him, because he said that he had a lot of other conversations with maybe other coaches around the league and offensive line coaches, and they were pretty informal and kind of off the cuff and everything. And he said his conversation with, Andy Heck was structured and formal and, serious. And so he liked that. I mean, it resonated with him. So, I mean, he said that the Chiefs kicked the tires on him more than any other team in the NFL did. So if the Chiefs don't have enough information about Josh Simmons, I mean, it certainly looks like they did their due diligence, and you're hoping that this pick works out for them.
Yeah, and the other key is if they didn't get enough information, they can get all the information they can handle now, since he's going to be with the Chiefs. So I'm saying they'll get all the information they can handle now, Matt.
Yeah. And there was a little bit of maybe putting lipstick on a pig a little bit from Andy Reid about the injury, because, Reid said he was like, well, I don't know if he's going to be available for the rookie mini camp, in a couple of weeks, but, we'll see after that. Josh Simmons was a little more, realistic with his goals. Like, he's hoping to be ready by training camp. It would not surprise me at all if he starts training camp on non-football injury list, and to bring him in slowly just to make sure he's 100%, because I mean, and Brett Veach and Andy Reid even kind of danced around this a little bit too. They're not necessarily expecting him to come in and be a starter. I mean, they signed Jalen Moore for a reason. They've got Jawan Taylor. They don't need him to be a starter this year.
Right.
If he's the swing tackle and is simply ready to maybe compete for a starting job next year, that's all they need, right?
Right now, here's what I want people to realize. They took a page out of the Eagles playbook, and they got ahead of a situation. They found Jalen Moore, got him in. He's a veteran. We'll see what he can do, obviously, when the pads come on. And they now have a guy at left tackle, so they didn't have to force the issue in the draft. Didn't feel like they had to be aggressive to trade up for Simmons if that's who they had their eye on, which I got a sneaky suspicion they've had their eye on him for quite some time, and they just had to make sure they felt 100% comfortable with doing it. And the fact not only that they did it, but they got a 5th-round pick from the Eagles by trading down a spot. Love that. If they'd gotten a 4th, I would love it even more. But like what I would caution fans is I'm okay if he doesn't play at all this year. If he doesn't play at all this year, I'm good with that. If it means the following 4 years, and I'm including that 5th-year option, obviously, if that's whenever he's truly needs 100% back to where it needs to be, and he can be the franchise tackle that they need. So for long-term for his career, if he doesn't play this year, that's not a bad thing. That actually might be the best thing for what keeps this window open for the Chiefs from a dynasty perspective for quite some time, to where Patrick feels comfortable for the next 4 years after this year instead of the revolving door that they've had. So look, Andy Heck and Corey Matei, the Chiefs invested yet again for them in the position, and they have a premium athlete and offensive lineman. There's no reason that you can't say, hey, well, you got to get, you got to get in the top 15 to get a premium tackle. You can't say that anymore. Like that notion, that's gone. You technically got, if healthy, one of the guys who would have been a top 15 pick. So you've taken your shot at a guy that you would have had to trade up for in other years. If healthy, you were able to get him at 32 and get a 5th-round pick. So it'll be interesting to see down the road here. It's obviously something everybody's going to be following for the next 4 years. But look, I have no issue with the pick. And Matt, do you want me to read my scouting report that I had on him? I mean, people can go back to the O-line, but I still have it if we want.
Go for it.
Want to go back.
Let's do it.
I know a lot of people don't. So for Josh Simmons, what I have on him, Simmons has really good lateral quickness on his reach steps and run blocking. Simmons is at his best with his hand in the dirt and firing off. That is where he's at his strength. He's got a good pop and drive to go with it. Simmons, when hunched over in pass pro, can get a good punch in his pass sets. Where he struggles at times is with speed around the edge. His kick step can be a tick slow, and he will need to improve widening the pocket for Patrick. Defenders are able to get around the corner sometimes, not all the time. Simmons is willing to keep his head on a swivel. It's a little tick behind right now, but that may be that he just doesn't have the practice at it. And if they get him enough reps, that will probably improve. He's obviously coming off the torn patella or patellar tendon, depending on how you Google search it. It shows both. Simmons is really solid in his pulls in space before the injury. And when he gets his hands locked in, he is not letting go. But it does lead to some holds. So that is my breakdown on him before the injury happened. So there's a lot of promising things there. There's some things to obviously work on. And if they fix those things, they have themselves a franchise left tackle.
Yeah.
And if he gets back to near 100%, obviously.
And interesting the way that, Brett Veach, I do like to say sometimes that Brett, when it comes to talking about the number of players that they have first round grades on, he can be sometimes, Nick, an unreliable narrator. Because, before the draft, the Chiefs were saying usually in the 16 to 18 range. And then it was like, okay, maybe it's 12 to 14. Tonight, it was 15. So it's an estimate about the number of players they have a first round grade on. And Simmons was different. I mean, he was a player that they did not have a first round grade on for this draft simply because of the injury. Without the injury, he would have been a player with a first round grade. So in this case, he was in kind of a different category.
So
but
are you saying my board might have been right on the grade placement?
your board was 100% right. Absolutely.
What I'm talking about.
So, but this was not a player that necessarily the Chiefs were going to trade up for. But if he fell to them at 31, they were going to be happy with that. There would have been, it sounds like, a few other players. We mentioned Maxwell Hairston specifically. Might have been a couple of other players that had they fallen to 31, maybe it's a little bit more of a difficult decision. But I mean, it certainly sounded like from Brett Veach that of the players that were available tonight when they were on the board, and then obviously traded back because Howie Roseman called and Brett Veach was like, okay, well, what just tell me, offense or defense? And Howie's like, we're taking a defensive player. Brett's like, that's all I need to know. And then 5th round pick comes out. Deal is done. That's how Howie and Brett Veach get along. They have a good relationship.
Well, they should, because Brett used to work for him.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe it's a little bit of Howie, maybe paying it forward or a little bit backward after the Super Bowl. I mean, Chiefs got a pretty good deal on the trade. So, and Howie obviously wanted to make sure nobody else was trading with the Chiefs to get that pick and maybe take the linebacker that they took. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a slam dunk that had another player been available that they still take Simmons, but I think it's still highly likely. But in this case, sitting at 31, the Chiefs were absolutely 100% comfortable and confident that this was the guy they were taking. Mm-hmm. So, kind of wanted to, go from there, talking about the rest of the AFC West, because there were some, I think, good picks tonight and some interesting decisions tonight around the rest of the AFC West. Let's start with the first pick. Obviously, the Raiders at number 6 get Ashton Gente, the powerful workhorse running back from Boise State that set a lot of records, Nick. Now he's in Vegas.
Yeah, so I mean, Pete Carroll's going to get the type of Marshawn Lynch running back that he kind of wants out there. If I was in their shoes, I'm kind of their guy ended up going off the board that I think they would have taken, Mason Graham, when he went 5 to the Browns. I think he may have been higher on the board than what Gentry was. And then I think obviously Armand Mimbu was also going to be in play for the Raiders as well. But all 3 of those guys made sense for the Raiders. The Raiders obviously took the guy that was probably the next guy in their mind that was on the board. So Pete Carroll's got his staple that he can build with Geno, and then we'll see what they do here along the defensive tackle in the next day or two, because I think the Raiders are going to need to add. I think the Raiders are going to need to add to that pass rush, and then I'm curious to see what they add to their offense, if they add to their offensive line and receiver, because it just those are the key things that Pete Carroll and them really need to kind of build here in the rest of their draft.
Yeah, the question for me with Gente is going to be, can he hold up to an NFL season, especially with the workload that he might get from Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly? Marshawn Lynch had 3 inches on him, and I know, hey, when he was coming out, Marshawn was 215, Gente's 211. I mean, Lynch also put a lot of muscle and weight. I don't think he was playing at 215 deep into his career. I mean, he was a powerful running back. Gente's not that big. So to me, it's just, can he hold up to the workload that those guys might give him? Yeah. So we will see. The next up were the Broncos a little bit later on. Everybody seemed to think that the Broncos were going offense and it was going to be tight end or running back. Tight ends were gone that they were projected maybe taking. They end up taking cornerback Jahdae Barron. I don't think anybody. I mean, you maybe have it on your board, Nick. You got everything else right, but I don't think anybody had them taking the corner at that position, much less Barron.
Well, I really thought that was one of the ones I was definitely surprised about, because I really thought Sean Payton was really going to try to lock in on doing what he needed to help Bo Nix have more pieces around him. So I think we'll find out at some point they were trying to trade up for one of the tight ends and they couldn't get there. And like I told you before we started the podcast, I have a sneaky suspicion they were willing to either trade up for a tight end or a running back. And they elected to go with They elected to go with Barron because the tight ends weren't there. They were okay with letting Hampton go, but I'm going to be curious to see where Travion Henderson from Ohio State goes tomorrow, because I wouldn't stun me if he's not the Broncos' number one target and Sean Payton trades up to go get him tomorrow and does something similar to what he may have been offering for the first round pick if he tries to sneak up there in the top of the second to go get the running back that they want. And I mean, Henderson would be a great fit for the Broncos. So that's kind of where I'm kind of wondering on that front. But they do need to add a tight end as well. While you've got Ingram there, go get another tight end that can start working with Bo Nix now and then take over in 2 years and really kind of help that offense. Because I think the Broncos are the number one team right now that's going to compete with the Chiefs very seriously.
Well, and you talk about running back, and Brett Veach talked about this too. I mean, it's a deep position, maybe into the second, third, fourth round. I expect the Chiefs are going to be taking a running back at some point over the next couple of rounds. So
yeah,
AFC West is not done adding running backs, and the Chargers did that tonight. They added their own. You mentioned Hampton, Omari and Hampton going to the Chargers. I really like this pick for them. They need and for Justin Herbert, they need a running back. They had J.K. Dobbins, and when Dobbins was playing last year, obviously he added a really good dimension to that running back field. You need a healthy workhorse running back. Hampton might be that guy for them.
Yeah, he gives them the long-term guy because he gives them the change of pace, but also the long-term guy because Najee's got wear and tear to where you're going to, I hate to say it this way, but you're going to wear him out over the next couple of years. He's going to start slowing down, and then Hampton will be up to speed and ready to take over at that point if everything goes right. So, and he's a physical runner, got great size to him. So he made sense for the Chargers. I just always assumed he was going to be off the board by the time the Broncos picked. So on that front, I totally get it. But the Chargers, I think I had it in my mock. I had them taking Kenneth Grant. I think most of people out there did, because the defensive coordinator, Jesse Minter, knows him better than pretty much anybody else is going to from their time at Michigan together. But the Chargers really do need to continue to focus on, if I'm them, I'm looking at tight end. I'm looking to add some receivers as well. And then you're looking to add extensively on that defensive line. So from a Chargers perspective, I really am intrigued to see what they're able to come away with from this draft when it's all over with. Because, I mean, they got a second. Obviously, they have the traditional second, third, fourth, fifth. They got they got 4 6-rounders. So they're going to use those to trade up probably in the fourth or fifth. They'll use those 6, and then they got the 7th. So, yeah, those 4 6-rounders, they're going to use a couple of them to move up. So that'll be interesting in that front. Or they may just fill out the roster with it, but I think they'll move up for an impact guy. So, yeah, I mean, I think those are all kind of the targets for the rest of the AFC West headed into day 2 on Friday night in draft season.
Looking at the rest of the first round and around the league, Nick, and I'm lucky, and I enjoy being able to ask you this question because you got more first round picks right than anybody. Mm-hmm. So you're the best.
One other guy that's tied with me.
But you got more right than anybody. I mean, nobody got more than you right. So
I still want to recognize the other individual that's tied. Okay.
Then you're one of the 2 best people to ask this question. But I'm lucky
for
that
this
you're
year.
here.
Who knows next year?
What surprised you in the first round?
I'm surprised the Jaguars are the one who aggressively went up to go get Travis Hunter, but it makes sense because they're trying to put their stamp on that organization in Jacksonville, and they're trying to change that culture down there. So Gladstone from the Rams and everything knows how important adding a player can be to altering a culture and he's got to witness it firsthand while being, with the Rams and watching Sean McVay work, and then obviously watching Les Snead work. So I'm not surprised they were that aggressive. It's just now what they're going to have to figure out over probably the next year is how do they get that first back? Not necessarily in the same spot, but get a first back in general. Who on that roster can they trade after this year and try to be able to recoup some of those picks? So that's going to be the secret dirty little question down the road here.
Yeah, that was the only thing that surprised me about that was definitely the haul, because throwing in that first round pick next year, wow. I mean, there were looking at some draft charts, even taking out that first round pick, that was maybe an even trade. I mean, there are probably going to be, some draft charts where, no, I mean, you had to have that first rounder to make it. But I don't think there's any way you can calculate. And we were looking at this in the draft room tonight at the Chiefs facility with the rest of the media. There's just that's a lopsided deal in favor of the Browns. I mean, they got tremendous value. But then again, I mean, if Travis Hunter is going to be a Pro Bowler or an All Pro at two different positions,
yeah,
then that's worth it.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that I'll say on that front is how the media gets used and worked is Browns are taking a lot of calls. And you just keep leaking that out throughout the day to get the Jaguars nervous and see if they upped it up, up the ante. And I know Gladstone probably said in his press conference, I know he says, I was listening on the radio, I was driving back home, that supposedly this framework of this deal had been done for a handful of days. And I'm like, if it was, they wouldn't have tried to drive up the price would have been driven or attempted to be driven up today through sources and everything. So I guess the suspicion that most of the framework was done, but that 2026 first rounder, that was the thing that put the cherry over the top, and they still would have called you if somebody offered more, and you would have had to offer more than that. So they should thank their lucky stars that it wasn't the case. But I am curious to see how the Jaguars use Hunter, if they use him as a cornerback, if they use him as a full-time receiver, what they end up doing. But it'll be interesting on that front.
I wasn't terribly surprised that Shedeur Sanders fell out of the first round, because that was one of the possibilities. I mean, it seemed like, and I think we even talked about this maybe the other night on the live Q&A, is that there's a pretty divisive view of Shedeur Sanders, of just, that there were some that thought maybe he's going to go in the top 5, and some that thought he would fall out of the first round, falls out of the first round.
Yeah.
The only thing that maybe surprised me about that and that whole sequence of events is that the Steelers didn't take a quarterback at 21. I thought that was a pretty reasonable chance that if it wasn't even Sanders, maybe it's Jackson Dart. I mean, I know I've heard that they're, Jalen Milroe maybe their guy that they really like, and maybe they can still get him in the second round. Mm-hmm. But Shedeur Sanders is completely out. Jackson Dart, who a lot of people thought was certainly going to go after Sanders, goes to the Giants, who move back in and get him at 25.
Yeah, Jackson Dart, I kind of felt was either going to end up with the Giants or the Titans, because I just think the release he has and how he approaches his throws, I wouldn't have been surprised if he was going to either spot. And so with Brian Dable and the way they run that offense, Dart made sense for them. And then I thought he made sense for Brian Callahan too, if they were going to take him at the top of the second. But Callahan and them took Cam Ward in the first, so they don't need to worry about it anymore. They got their next quarterback. So that'll be interesting on that front.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd been really tempted to have Travis Hunter and Jackson Dart, or Travis Hunter and anybody as my quarterback, but they're going to go with Cam Ward. We'll see what happens. So let's talk about day 2. Chiefs have 3 selections on the second night of the NFL draft. They have number 63 overall in the second round. Then they're right back at number 66, 3 picks later at the top of the third round. That's the pick from the Titans in the L'Jarius Sneed trade. And then they have their own pick at the end of the third round, number 95 overall. So 3 picks tomorrow night. Chiefs can be busy, Nick. And, getting that, I'm going to throw it in there, that getting that 5th round pick, that number 164, it does give them some flexibility if they want to move around, because Brett Veach even mentioned it again tonight that, after you get past maybe 50, 55, now then you're going to start getting players that are going to go that, one team may have as a 3rd round player, and some teams have a 6th round player. Mm-hmm. The top 50, there's a difference there. And if Brett Veach wants to get into the top 50 or top 55, he's going to have to move up from 63. That 5th round pick might be what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, we'll now you got to make me look up my mock draft chart to be able to check this out and see. So I'm going to put KC in there. Hopefully they have it up to date with the 5th rounder, and they do. Okay.
Woo-hoo!
So, yeah. So, I mean, where the Chiefs are at 63, if they want to get aggressive right now, they could take that 5th rounder tomorrow in the 2nd round, and they have the equivalent to get to the 59th pick if they use their 5th rounder and the 63rd overall. Now, if they want to go up to 58, they're going to have to use one of those 7s. So right now, the 5th, and if they want to use a 7th on top of that, that allows them to get to 58. Now, if the Chiefs want to hold on to that 5th rounder and those 3 7th round picks, then that's where their 4th rounder next year comes into play. To where maybe they use that future 2026 4th rounder to move up and take a guy that they're really interested in, if it gets to that point, numbers wise.
Now, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, obviously, I think you're going to pull offensive line off the list of Chiefs needs on night 2. So I can't expect them to be going after a tackle in the 2nd round. I don't think they're going to be looking at an interior lineman either. So Chiefs needs defensive tackle, defensive end, cornerback, receiver, running back, probably all on the table with those 3 picks tomorrow night.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Rashard Smith, Ty Robinson, a receiver, a corner,
Jalen Noel, another one of our favorites.
A 1 or 3 tech. I would really like to see him get. I'd love to see him get the defensive end. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. And I'm also intrigued tomorrow when the Chiefs are on the board at 66. Is there anybody that's brave enough? Is there anybody that wants to move up and give them another pick in the 4th or 5th round to move up to that high, to that 66 overall? So that's another spot that I think the Chiefs can make a little hay with if they want to. So yeah, I mean, we'll see on that front. But yeah, no, I obviously, as long as I get a running back by end of round 4, and it's a name that's on my board, I'm good. And then at some point I'd love to. I want to see him get pass rush now, and I think they're going to go after. It wouldn't stun me if they got 2 pass rushers in the corner tomorrow, but it also I wouldn't be surprised either if it's a pass rusher, a corner, and either receiver or running back. But I think it's all there for the taking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of kids with some local connections who should be going tomorrow night. I mean, Ariante Ursery, Jacob Perry should be in that conversation. Jalen Noel, obviously, Luther Burden from Missouri, might even get into DJ Giddens territory. Might be
Devin Neal potentially as well.
Devin Neal potentially. So it could be a really good night for Kansas City area football. There might be a lot of guys with some local ties and local college ties, local high school, whatever you've got it. Might be going on Friday night. So it should be a good night for Kansas City football.
Yes, Matt. But I think it's about that time because it's 2:30 in the morning when we're finishing this record. I think it's about that time, Matt.
Yep, I think it probably is. Everybody have a great Friday, remainder of it, and get ready for the draft again tonight. Obviously, Nick and I will be recapping after the 3rd round. So it'll probably be about 24 hours from now. I'm guessing
from when we're taping. When you're listening, it'll be
exactly. So probably like 2:30 in the morning on Saturday when we'll be finishing this up. So we'll be back with you after the 2nd and 3rd round, break down everything that the Chiefs have going on and around the league.
And we might find out who the Chiefs Hall of Fame member is.
We might find that out.
Hear from Clark Hunt, and
we will hear from Clark Hunt on Friday, so we can see if there's anything revelatory coming out of that.
Yeah, I bet there's a lot of stadium questions.
Probably will be.
Just a guess on my part. Just a guess. That's just me guessing, though.
Everybody have a great Friday. Enjoy the coverage of the 2nd and 3rd rounds of the NFL draft, and we will be back in your stream Saturday morning.
And don't forget to check out the big board, because it's draft season.
You've been listening to 41 is the Mic, presented by KSHB 41, your home of the Chiefs, and Chiefs Digest.